LBC 97.3. Call 0845 6060973. This is London's biggest conversation with Ian Collins.
You may be familiar, 10 to 8 by the way, you may be familiar with the story of Philip Sheriff. We've spoken and reported on this, of course, here on LBC 97.3 throughout the course of the trial, which culminated just a couple of weeks ago with a man being found guilty of his murder. This was the young man. He was 37 years of age. He was at a Jessie J gig, and he was bottled, essentially. Man lost his temper, lost control, smashed a bottle, and slashed his hand and slashed his neck, and that proved to be fatal. He died a few days after that. I've been following over the course of the summer. Not that I could really talk about it because it would have potentially prejudiced a trial. You can't talk about certain things on air, but I've been following his wife's Facebook page where she'd been really logging her feelings and her journey and the difficulties that she'd been having, and how to talk to the kids and how to sort of replace such a huge gap in your life. And one of the things that has clearly kept her going has been a charity that has been set up called Bottle Stop. And the idea behind the charity is to try and get certainly nightclubs, maybe corporate events, to lose the glass bottle and simply to replace them with plastic ones. We know plastic is available, and it's a campaign that she really is clearly trying to get as much prominence for as possible. I think most people would support it. It seems like a completely reasonable move, and of course it would have saved the life of Philip. Let's speak with Norm Baker. Norm was a close friend of Philip's for over 20 years. Evening, Norm.
Good evening, Ian.
And nice to speak with you, sir. And we really appreciate you coming on. And I think, as I described, the story is essentially what happened to Philip, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. It was a corporate event. He was there as part of his work. He'd been invited to a BlackBerry promotional event, which I think everybody knows was featuring Jessie J as a performer. And towards the end of the evening, his colleagues had left. Phil was just finishing his beer, and he was confronted by Ashley Charles, and there ensued some kind of argument, and the end result was that Phil was stabbed through the neck with a broken bottle.
What was interesting when I first sort of heard this story, because my other half said to me, who smashes a bottle other than on The Sopranos? Who smashes a bottle? Who thinks to do that and then goes to slash somebody with the broken piece? But oddly, I did actually see somebody do that in a club once. They didn't manage to cause any damage, but they did. There's clearly some level of anger beyond anything that most of us can understand.
Yeah,
and of course, that's what happened with this guy, isn't it?
It appears to be. I mean, it wasn't conclusive in court that he had deliberately smashed the bottle. I think any right-thinking person would naturally conclude that if a bottle shatters while it is in your hand, then you know about it. I think that's clear. But the court didn't prove that he broke it intentionally, simply that he used the broken bottle as a weapon. But I think you're right, and actually the campaign that Jane is running, which is what you've been following on Facebook, and it can be found by searching for Bottle Stop on Facebook. The campaign recognises the fact that actually a lot of the injuries which are caused in this kind of scenario are not necessarily injuries caused by bad people intent on causing damage. They're often just a case that people in the midst of anger, whilst perhaps having had a few drinks, have a very useful and effective weapon to hand.
So it's almost it happens to be in their hand, as strange as that sounds. Yes.
And if you remove that possibility by removing glassware from premises where that kind of incident is likely to happen, then I think you're really taking a step in the right direction in terms of both the victims but also the perpetrators.
I was going to say, one of the conversations I remember we had in the office, not that I think many people are going to have much of an understanding for Ashley Charles, and he was sentenced to life with a minimum of 14 years at the Old Bailey a couple of weeks ago, as I mentioned. But what was interesting is that this wasn't the archetypal story of, bad miscreant from the streets who sat there in an alley. This was another professional male.
That's right. He, we were told in court that he had no history of aggression. He had no history of aggression at all. He seemed to be quite good at it, but that's beside the point. He did go from somebody who had no police record at all to being a convicted murderer in the space of a few brief seconds. And whilst I don't have any sympathy for Ashley Charles whatsoever, as I'm sure you can understand, if there had been no glass available, then he wouldn't be in that situation. At worst, he would be looking at a common assault, but the chances are he would have been thrown out by the bouncers, and that would have been an end to it.
Indeed. Now, of course, the Bottle Stop campaign is about trying to get corporate places and nightclubs, etc., to exchange glass bottles for plastic ones. Pretty simple move. I've been to corporate events where sometimes they have had plastic bottles, so they do exist, Norm, don't they?
That's right. And in fact, most outdoor events now, festivals and outdoor concerts and so forth, part of the licensing conditions are that they're not allowed to serve in glass. What we're saying is that this approach should be extended across all late night venues and city centres where you are likely to run into trouble or where trouble can occur. At the moment, some areas do have that as part of the licensing conditions, some don't. Some venues do it voluntarily, some don't. We're saying that there should not be any situation where the type of nightclub where on a Friday or Saturday night people do drink to excess, the glass should not be there in the event of any kind of altercation. And actually, it's not just where two guys get into a fight where this causes problems. It can be something as simple and as silly as a bottle being thrown. And we've been in a lot of the research that we've done, we've come across some really tragic cases of completely innocent victims suffering terrible injuries or even death in the case of one lady in Manchester, where a glass or a bottle is thrown and it shatters against a wall or a pillar or even somebody's head, and the injuries which can be caused from that are really quite terrible.
Well, it's incredible. It's not really until you outlined it a second ago when just the way you put it, Norm, which was perfect. That you have a situation where people are in high spirits. There's alcohol. They're having a laugh. They're legally allowed to be a bit intoxicated, and also carrying a massive lump of glass in their hand. And when you look at it like that, it seems almost beyond belief that we even allow it at all.
It does, and it's interesting just how much feedback has come through the Bottle Stop campaign site on Facebook, where, first of all, the number of people who say they've been affected either directly or indirectly from this, and as I say, not always as a result of violence, just sometimes as a result of an accident, but people are saying to us, why isn't this already the case? It seems incredible that after all of these years where glass injuries are a feature of every single A&E department every single weekend, why hasn't something been done already?
Yeah.
We have MPs supporting the campaign, some who were on board prior to Jane starting her Bottle Stop campaign, some who have joined since, and I really do feel there's a groundswell of opinion which will hopefully drive this towards a conclusion, albeit it is going to take time and effort.
I mean, you lost a friend of 20 years. I know you spoke at Philip's funeral. Jane has lost a husband. Two little kids have lost their dad. It would be fitting. It would be perhaps the only thing we could hope is that the one thing that can come of such a tragedy is a change in the law where you are listened to, and this what seems like a very simple change is able to take place.
We hope so. I think in a situation like this, it's very difficult to see the good that can come out of it. But if any good can come out of it, and if this law can be passed, then I have to say it will make Jane sleep easier. It will make me sleep easier in terms of the fact that this couldn't happen to somebody else in future, and certainly not somebody as nice, as genial, and as innocent as Phil was.
And just remind everybody, Norm, if you would, the Facebook address, the best place to go for more information.
It's facebook.com/bottlestopnow. Alternatively, if you search Facebook for Bottle Stop and you see a sunflower logo, then you know you're in the right place.
Listen, Norm, I know it's obviously hard to tell, but you speak with great